You're watching a Java Basics review. I'm going to take you from data types to method creation. And that's pretty much what we've covered so far through the first semester and a little bit into this. So take notes, follow along. I'm going to go one page at a time. I have 5 pages, 27 questions total. And I'm going to answer those 27 questions in here, but I'm going to do it through 5 different smaller videos. So let's get started. There are 8 primitive data types. I want to name 4. I'm going to start with the primary of 4 data types. And the first one of those is, let's go with the simplest of all, and that's Boolean. So Boolean is a true, false. That's all you can get. True or false. That's it. There we go. So Boolean is a true or false result. That's all you can get it. The grade of that is it's literally 1 bit on or off. The next one we'll talk about is int. Int is an integer. A whole number, I just put an integer. An integer, which is a whole number and its opposite. No decimals. But we can get decimals by doing a double. Oops. A double. So a double allows you to have decimals. And the last one of the basic 4 that we're going to use is char. It is a single character, whether that's a letter, a number, a special character like a hashtag. These are all single characters. Now there are 4 others, and I'll include them so you can know what they are. So a lot of these have extensions. Int has a specific amount of memory that's saved. So every time you make an int variable, it records a specific amount of space in your memory. So to shorten that, you might use a short, which is an integer, but a shorter integer than an int. Or you could do long, which is an integer, but obviously a longer integer than an int. Now, along with double, you can do a float. So a float is a decimal with a specific a number of decimal places. So you can use that later. And the very last one is a byte, which is 8 bits. That's 2 to the power of 8. And it stores a very much smaller number. 128 specifically. So if you only need a smaller one, that's a great one. It doesn't waste your memory. So if we've got primitives, let's talk about non-primitives. All right, so now name one non-primitive data type. The one we most commonly use is a string. String is the most common, and it is a group of characters. It can be letters, it can be numbers, it can be spaces. It is long. There are other non-primitive data types, not that we're going to use here. There are things like arrays and lists. We can get into strange ones like integer, which is capitalized at the beginning. A string is actually a class. We're going to explain that out here in a moment. So the really only one non-primitive we care about is a string right now. So let's declare one primitive and one non-primitive data type. I'm going to make an int. That's pretty straight. Whoops. Int. That's pretty straight up. Called num. All I'm doing is declaring it, and in memory, it will save that place for it. It doesn't have any value associated right now. It's the default value, which is 0, and that's it. I can also do the same thing for a string. So string word. It's going to reserve that space in there with nothing in it. So that's declaration. Now let's talk about initialization. Initialize one primitive and one non-primitive. Initialization is when you give it a value. So back to my example before, int num. I can give it a value of 4. Now I've initialized that value. So num now actually holds something. It's not just an empty box. It now has the number 4 in it. Same thing with non-primitive. So string word equals frog, because this is my video. Now, word has something in it. Now, here's where string gets a little weird. String is actually a class that creates objects. Normally, if I was doing a class, like let's say I had integer. So integer, I can't spell integer. Integer num1 equals new integer, and then I give it a value of 4. So I did all that to go out. String has been shortened. You don't have to put string word equals new string and frog in there. You can, and it will work, but you don't have to do all that way. It's been hyphenated or shortened. Number 5, write a short program initializing one primitive and one non-primitive data type and concatenating them. So we're going to write a short program. As we write, we want to make sure we go ahead and start throwing in methods. I'll talk a little bit more about methods, but I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to make a method. So public static void main, because that's the first thing it looks for. String, where's that cool doodad? Args, which is just an imported string, no value, curly brace. So I start doing it. So I'm initialize a primitive. So int num equals 4. Semicolon. I did it. Num is now equal to 4. Now I make a string. String name equals Alice, like Alice in Wonderland. Now I've initialized 2 variables. Now I can concatenate them. I can just put them together, or I can do something a little fancier. Let's just concatenate them and add them together. Concatenation is a fancy word for a plus sign. It's used with strings to make them together. Concatenation only works with strings, so be careful with your lean in with primitives. But let's go this. So I'm going to create another string called message. And I'm going to make it equal to name plus, there's my concatenation symbol. Going to get a space in there so it won't look funky. 8. I'm going to put another space after it. I'm going to concatenate. I'm going to do my concatenation. There's my plus sign. My plus sign. And now I'm going to say num. Concatenate. Put that. I'll put a space. And I'm just going to write cupcakes. Period. And that's it. So it'll say, basically, Alice ate 4 cupcakes. And that'll give me my message. I want to close this out with my curly braces there. And I've made a method that makes a silly little statement. But I did initialize a primitive and a non-primitive. So now, what I want to do is I want to write a line of code to print out the concatenated result from the previous question. That is super easy. I'm going to create a print line. Difference between print and print line, remember, is print doesn't add a line return, whereas print line adds a line return and goes to the new line. So I'm starting out with system, which is my class, .out.println, which is my method. Methods always start with lowercase. They end with parentheses with parameters, and I'm going to put in there message. Close that, and I've just done that. All right, I hope those 6 helps. Make sure you write these down for your memory. See you in the next video.